Hi, it's Justin Coletti of Sonic Scoop, and welcome back for some more MixCon 2024. And today, we've got a masterclass with a very cool producer, engineer, mixer by the name of Philip Weinrobe. Phil has been working with some great artists like Adrianne Lenker, Alanis Morrisete, Theo Katzman of the band Vulfpek, the legendary Tom Waits guitarist Marc Ribot, Deerhoof, Leonard Cohen, and so many more. And today, we're going to have a really special masterclass because Philip is doing something different than a lot of people do in MixCon. Instead of doing something of a mix teardown where he walks us through a song he's mixed in the past, instead he's doing more of a mix buildup where he's going to walk us through a mix in real time from start to finish, working extremely quickly. And he's doing everything from loading up the tracks into his DAW, sorting through them, applying his template to them, working super quickly with a program called SoundFlow that allows him to expedite this whole process, and then taking us through the creative part of the mix, giving us his thought process and what he's listening for, and making changes in real time along with us to end up with a new final mix for this track. A song by Theo Katzman of the band Vulfpek. If you haven't checked out Vulfpek or Theo, you absolutely have to. Like all MixCon Masterclasses, this one is free to the public thanks to our sponsors, and the sponsor on this one is a super natural fit. It is one of my favorite plugin companies in the world, Soundtoys, and they're also one of Phil's favorite plugin companies as well. Philip uses a whole bunch of their plugins on here, the CQ, EQ, their Little Plate, Reverb, and makes extensive use of their Echo Boy delay plugin and more. So big shout out and thanks to those guys. If you haven't tried their plugins yet, you don't know what you're missing, go over to soundtoys.com and try out anything and everything they make for free for 30 days there at soundtoys.com. Also, we are giving away a whole bunch of stuff thanks to our MixCon sponsors. We got the MixCon Mega giveaway going on. We're giving away more than $5,000 worth of free gear, and you've got 3 chances to win, so sign up for that and good luck to you. We're also doing a live Q&A with Philip as soon as this main masterclass concludes. So if any questions pop into your head as you're checking this masterclass out, just type them into the chat box here on the side of your screen. I'll be saving the best ones for that live Q&A that we'll be doing as soon as this wraps up. And one last quick little note, if you enjoy this kind of content, remember to hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and hit that notifications bell to make sure that you don't miss any more great MixCon Masterclasses coming your way. All right, without any further ado, let's get right into it. Big shout out and thanks to Soundtoys. Big shout out and thanks to the artist, Theo Katzman, for letting us go under the hood of his track. And big thanks to Philip Weinrobe. Philip, take it away.
Welcome to MixCon 2024. My name's Philip Weinrobe, and first off, a big thanks to our sponsors, Soundtoys, makers of some of the best plugins on earth. We'll be using a bunch of Soundtoys today, but not because they're the sponsor, because they're wonderful. Today, we're going to do something a little bit different. A lot of times I see producers, engineers, mixers in these videos do what I would call like a mix teardown. I'd like to just mix a song because I would like to take you inside of my workflow. And to do that, we're going to start at the very beginning, what happens when I ask for files, and then take it all the way to the end of delivery. And I'm just going to show you kind of what I do. I place a particular emphasis and attention on process. And I think that there's a lot to be gained from knowing, oh, I use this plugin, or oh, I use this piece of vintage equipment. But I think that there is even more to be gained by establishing a sense of workflow, a sense of process, and a sense of order around our creative work. Whether that creative work is mixing, is writing, is producing, is painting, it doesn't really matter. Process is the entry point and the exit point for me for making art. So I'm going to take you through my process today. So let's just dive right in. We're going to mix today a song that I've already mixed once, so I'm going to mix it again, by an artist named Theo Katzman, who's in a band called Vulfpek. And a couple years ago, I flew out to Michigan, where Theo, myself, producer Pete, Jordan Rose, we had Dave McKay, we had Joe Dart on bass, Theo playing guitar, singing, playing piano. Maybe that's the band. We all got together in Michigan and made this record. We came back to the studio, Sugar Mountain. We did all the overdubs and mixed it. So I'm going to kind of start this from when we finished the overdubs, and I've delivered this session to myself. So let's open that up. Let's start our mix, and I'll just kind of talk you through the process. Here's the delivery for mix. So when I get a mix delivered to me, I never take a DAW file. I always work straight from the audio files. However, I never want to work from raw audio files. So I don't want people to remove plugins or remove effects or remove EQ. I want to start my mix right from where the producer left it. I want it to sound exactly like the rough mix, exactly like the production file when I start mixing. Sometimes I find, oh yeah, I actually do want that reverb removed, or I do want that delay to be turned down. In those cases, I'll go back to the producer and I'll say, hey, send me that vocal without reverb, send me that snare drum without compression. But those are exceptions to the rule. First, I want to start exactly where it was left off. So I have here a delivery of this track, and I'm going to start by importing that into my template. I want to talk about my template philosophy. I see a lot of mixers have templates with reverbs and delays and all sorts of bussing structure built in. My template philosophy is just the 2-mix, and that's it. 2-mix and MIDI. Everything else I want to build ad hoc. The reason I want to build it ad hoc is because I don't want to fall into the same patterns that I always fall into. So if I'm able to kind of do it quickly and do it efficiently and do it ad hoc, I think I'm able to be a more creative person. So I'll just walk you through what my template has, and then we'll import these tracks. So my template has a masters folder. In that masters folder, I have an instrument bus, a vocal bus, a 2-mix, a limiter bus, and then I have a monitor track. I also have hidden what I call a prod track. That's essentially the same thing as the limiter track without the limiter. And that's going to be helpful at the end when I do my bouncing. The last thing I have is I have a hidden MIDI track, which I'll show you. And this MIDI track is multed to a bunch of different targets, and that's going to control different plugins in my DAW. It's also going to control hardware, so my different hardware reverbs and delays, and it's also going to do some sound flow MIDI translation so that I can pull up like my limiter, for example, with the click of a button with my little MIDI CC fighter situation. So that's my entire template. It's very simple, but I rely on it immensely to get my work done in a timely fashion. One other thing to note, in this video, I'm going to be moving a little bit quickly through many things, and my screen is definitely going to be moving quickly. That's because I'm going to be doing a lot of things with SoundFlow. This video is not a Pro Tools tutorial. I'm not trying to show you how to use Pro Tools. I'm trying to show you structure around how I think about mixing. One other thing before we dig in. My goal for this video is not to do a good mix. I'm going to do a mix. It's going to be something. I might even send it off to Theo when it's done, just for laughs. But my goal isn't for the mix to slap necessarily. My goal is just to go through my process. And in a normal process, when I send it off to the artist, that's the beginning of a new process. That's the beginning of a collaborative process. They would give notes, they'd give feedback, we'd start tweaking and tweaking and tweaking until we get to something we're both super psyched about. So let's make a mix. First thing we're going to do is we're going to import that delivery. We're going to import those WAV files that were sent by the client, who in this case was me, as I was the holder of the sessions for this record. So I'm going to just select all the audio and copy it in, open, boom, audio comes in. Now, once this audio is in, we're going to need to color it, we're going to need to group it, and we're going to need to route it. So that's what we're going to do together. I'm going to show you my process for grouping, coloring, and routing. Let's start by getting our masters and our monitor tracks at the bottom of the screen where I like them, and then we can just start right up at the top. So here's our bass tracks. I'm going to color those red and put them in a group called bass. Great. Here's our background vocal tracks. I'm going to color those a specific shade of blue, put them in a group called background vocals. And I'm using SoundFlow to achieve all of the speed and error-proof action on this. Next, I see I got a conga. That's a percussion element, so let's color it like a percussion element and group it. Next, I see a couple keyboards. We'll put those in a keyboard group. And once I have this group in my system, it persists, and I can then dump other things into that group. So here's a kick, here's a snare. We'll put those in a drum group. And as I color them, I start seeing, okay, I can start organizing these things now. But here's a lead vocal. We'll put that in a lead vocal group. Okay, so now I have everything colored and grouped. So now I'm just going to literally drag like things next to each other. This is just a physical process where I just grab the tracks I want and I put them in the specific order I like my sessions to be in. I want my sessions to be in the exact same order every time. I want the exact same color every time, because this is just a way for me to essentially eliminate the DAW. What I'm trying to do throughout my whole process is, how can I not think about the DAW? How can I move as fast as possible around this session without having any thought? I don't want my vocal to be blue one day, red the next day, purple the next day. It's always blue. You might not think vocals are blue, you might think vocals are red. Doesn't matter what color you make them, as long as you make them a consistent color. Keyboards for me are green. You might think that's insane. You would be both right and wrong in that case. Okay, so now we have an order. The order for my tracks are always basses, drums, percussion, winds and strings, keyboards, lead vocals, keyboards, background vocals, then lead vocals. That's the order that makes the most sense to me. I like my bass before my kick so that my basses and my kick drums are like closest to each other for visual reference. I like my vocals all the way at the end of the session so I can quickly get to my vocals. I like my drums and bass at the other end of the session so I can quickly get to the drums and bass, because at the end of the day, drums, bass, vocals, pretty important. Now I've got everything organized vertically or horizontally in my session, and now it's time to route these tracks. Now again, I have a SoundFlow script that's going to do that for me. You're going to see that run in just a second. You can definitely do this manually. You can do this manually in any DAW, not a big deal. Here we go. We're going to do it, and as it does it, I will kind of tell you what's happening. Okay, so the first thing I do is I strip silence. So I strip silence below 96 dB from every single track. That allows me to kind of see where the edits are in the production, allows me to see what was recorded live and what wasn't, and just gives me a really quick visual representation of the arrangement, so I'm not looking at a bunch of blank colored space. Fantastic. Now I select the bass tracks and I route them to a routing folder called bass mix, and then that routing folder bass mix goes over to the instrument bus. Next, the drums. Drums get routed to a folder called drums mix. Drums mix goes to the instrument bus. And my SoundFlow script is just gonna cycle through the session and do this for me. This not only saves me time, what it really saves me is like mental energy, because I'm trying to save all of my mental energy, all of my decision-making brain process for the actual creative act of mixing. The creative process of making decisions and working out these creative problems that are going to come up requires a massive amount of brain energy. And since brain energy is not unlimited, it's based on essentially like what we ate and our genetics and all sorts of stuff, how tired we are. I need to preserve as much as I can. So if I had to spend even an extra 5 minutes like doing 100 clicks for each one of those things, it would blow my mix away as far as like having time to mix. So glad that's over with now. I'm going to delete those groups because I no longer need them. They were just for the SoundFlow process. Now I have everything organized. I can see the arrangement because I've stripped silence, which is really helpful. I see where the percussion comes in. I can see where the winds come in. I can see where the background vocals come in. I can see that the bass, the drums, the lead vocals, and at least a good amount of the pianos and keys were tracked live, since their audio files are full length with no silence. That's 96 dB or quieter. And then I have here a little rough mix. So the next step is I'm going to listen to only the rough mix, and I'm going to mark up the session. And what I do when I mark up the session is I'm just marking up the form. So let's listen down and mark up the form.
It's a lemonade stand, you see. Thousands of years stuck to the ocean bottom out of the blue. Dayton, Ohio's calling, next thing we knew. Man on the moon, you see. The wheel.
Beautiful. Great, so now I got the whole form marked up. Start, verse 1, verse 2, chorus 1, verse 3, verse 4, chorus 2, bridge, which I call B1, C3, coda, and end. And again, this is a consistent naming convention. And the reason I keep it consistent is so that I can navigate around fast, because I can use some shortcuts to zip around to verse 1, verse 3,
Watch the old
chorus 2,
ones that hurt
the coda, the start of the song, and even the bridge. That's the same for every session, every song I work on. Even if I'm working on some experimental, instrumental, ambient music, I'm still gonna mark it up with V1, V2, C1, V3 to kind of try to just give myself some anchor points in the song that I can get to very quickly with some shortcuts, so that I'm not like mousing around the screen again, trying to just preserve the mental energy so I can put it all into the reverb decay time instead of trying to mouse around to a specific part of the form. Now that I've marked the form and I've listened to the rough mix and I have a sense of where the song was left before it got to me, I'm now going to take that rough mix and hide it and make it inactive for my session, never to listen to again if everything goes according to plan. Goodbye, rough mix. Now it's time to start mixing. Everything up to here was a very rigid process that has no room for creativity, no room for freelancing, no room for improvisation, no room for goofing around. This happens exactly the same every single time, so that when I get to this point in the process, I can be fully intuitive. My mixing process once I get here is going to be an intuitive workflow where I'm going to just kind of go at it, which I'll do in a moment and you'll see. And then it'll have a more structured workflow where I'll kind of pretend that I'm the artist, and I'll pretend that I'm hearing the mix like the artist is hearing it. I will take notes just like the artist is, and then I'll do those notes like I'm the mix engineer again. I might cycle back and forth between those two processes, the intuitive process and the note-taking, note execution process, a few times in a normal mix. On this mix today, I'm going to do each one time. So let's dive into the mix, and by diving into the mix, we're also going to dive into my technical workflow here at Sugar Mountain, which involves my Avid S3 for automation, my Studer 962 mixing console, which I use for effects returns and processing. I have a bunch of pedals, I have a bunch of time-based rack equipment, I have a bunch of EQs, I have a bunch of dynamics, I have a tape machine. We're going to hopefully use all of it. So let's dig in. I generally start at the thing that was like most annoying or sticking out to me when I listened to the rough mix. And when I listened to this rough mix, the thing I heard was that the panning schema wasn't fully realized. That's probably to do with the fact that the panning schema just hadn't been thought through maybe up until this point, or that the delivery broke the panning schema, because I tend to want everything delivered to me without panning. So I'll take anything that's mono down the middle, just a single mono track. Anything that's stereo, I'll take the full stereo width of like a stereo piano recording or stereo overheads. But if it's like a snare mic that someone had panned left, why would you pan a snare mic left? I don't know. Maybe we'll do that on this mix just for fun. But that snare mic's going to come in as a mono track. So I'm going to have to pan it as part of my mix. And as part of my mixing, I want to have some amount of control over the panning schema. I can always go back to the rough mix to hear how the producer was hearing it, or I can catch panning schema notes once I send it to the artist. But I'm going to give it my first attempt. So since this mix was reading a little mono to me and a little not so defined across the panorama, I'm going to dive into that first. So I'm going to open up all my folders. I'm going to take a look at what I got. I'm going to work from the mix window. I'm going to play it down from the top and just start panning, no soloing. First thing I saw was there was a vocal track called Vocal Bam L and Vocal Bam R. Dead giveaway. Those are supposed to be left and right. And what those are, as someone who recorded this, I can tell you that was a print through the auto band pedal that happened live. So while Theo was singing the song and I was recording it, I had a bunch of pedals going and I was routing things to them live off the board and returning them into Pro Tools. So this was the band pedal set to like this super short chorus, which is one of the reasons I love this reverb, is it has a chorus setting. You turn the reverb time all the way down, it just acts as a sick chorus. So let's make that wide. Check that out.
Knock on the door, open the invitation, looking out for a lemonade situation. Hold out your hand, it's a lemonade stand. Here comes a hurricane, it's blowing, babe, and there goes the automobile.
So here I'm just taking instruments that seem to go together with effects that maybe were printed, and I'm panning them off. A whirly and a ring modulator on the whirly acting as a tremolo.
Hurricane, it's blowing, babe.
The background vocals, let's take a listen.
Here comes the hurricane. Here comes the hurricane.
Those are already stereo. I'm going to leave them as they are. As the recording engineer, I can tell you those were recorded on a Neumann KU100 binaural microphone. So I don't want to mess with the panning on that, because the whole idea is that it should feel super lifelike in that Theo's singing like right up against your face. So I've got the vocal panned out. I panned out a couple whirlies. I panned out a couple synths real quick. That gets me kind of started. Let's see what this one is. Yeah, here's another whirly and a ring modulator. Cool, maybe I'll put the ring modulator on the other side than the last whirly, so the image flips when we switch to whirly 2 from whirly 1. I'm just going to kind of go through quickly and get all this stuff kind of sorted. That all looked good, that looks good. Let's check out the percussion. Yeah, congas up the middle, that's kind of cool, but maybe it'd be cooler if congas were hard right. And then let's talk about the bass as far as panning goes. So we normally want bass, kick, snare, vocals, oftentimes primary accompanying instrument down the middle. But I've been kind of addicted recently, it might change by the time this video comes out, to just ever so slightly panning the bass. I don't know why, it just makes it sound more alive to me, makes it sound more natural. So I'm going to take these two bass tracks, I'm just going to pan them like 5 to the left. I think Susan Rogers said the left speaker contains the emotionally impactful information as far as like what your brain responds to more naturally. The right speaker should contain more rhythmic material as far as what your brain is going to respond to more naturally. I consider bass to be highly emotional as a bass player myself, so I'm going to pan it just a little to the left. That left-right Susan Rogers thing is something I use when it's like, could go either way. So if I have an instrument, I'm like, where should I pan it, left or right? I just ask, is it more rhythmic or more emotional? Obviously, rhythm and emotion can go together, but I try to just answer that question and pick the right direction based off what Susan Rogers has taught us all. So bass panned a little bit. This is a decent panning scheme to start. I'll keep panning as I go along with the session, but this gets me going at least. I'm just gonna start back at the top and keep working and just start like kind of moving some shit around. First thing I want to do is check out this piano. I might do a little compression on that. Let's just take a quick solo to hear exactly what we're dealing with. Yeah, I think we can bring out some of the quieter parts of that piano, make it a little more even. To do that, I'm going to use some hardware. Now, My hardware workflow is 100% hardware insert. I've pre-made all my hardware inserts for the studio and pre-labeled them. So all I need to do is make an insert. I use a search for my inserts, and I'm going to choose DBC. DBC is a diode bridge compressor made by my friend Raphael Peterson. It's a wonderful unit to my right. It's a stereo gained compressor, so I don't need to worry about setting the left channel the same as the right channel. Very nice for that. So I'm going to instantiate the DBC as a hardware insert. I'm going to hit play. I'm going to go start messing with it.
Knock on the door, open the invitation. Knock on the door.
Nice, subtle and great. Also, this diode bridge compressor is very nice. One thing I actually like about it is it's got a little bit of noise, which is great. Adds a little bit of extra hiss to your track. Gives it that kind of like tapey 70s vibe. Well, that's something I really appreciate about this compressor. Okay, moving forwards.
Knock on the door, open the invitation, looking out for a lemonade situation. Hold out your hand, it's a lemonade stand, you see. Thousands of years.
I've put my vintage LA2A on Theo's vocal. Let's dial that in.
Knock on the door, open the invitation, looking out for a lemonade situation. Hold out your hand, it's a lemonade stand, you see.
Nice. Okay, I now realize I want to send Theo's vocal to a reverb prior to the limiter. So I'm going to actually remove that LA2A real quick. We're going to send Theo's vocal to a separate limiter bus. Pro Tools is going to do a bunch of things to clean up my mess. Thank you, Pro Tools. We're going to put that bus where I want it on the track. And now I've got the vocal
Knock on the door.
going to the limiter, but on a bus. The reason I want to do that is so that I can now take that vocal and send it to a reverb bus. So the vocal is being split off, one to the limiter, one to the reverb. That allows me to get the reverb happening pre the compression, which basically means free reverb rides for me. So let's call that LV verb. And maybe this is a good time to pull up our first Soundtoys plugin. One of my favorite Soundtoys plugin is their newest called Superplate. Superplate sounds super, just like its name. Me, I'm a classic 140 guy. I like a bit of a short plate, so let's guess around 1.5. Let's filter some lows out of it before even listening to it. Also, I've been really into pre-delay lately, so let's crank that pre-delay up to like 120, add a little modulation, and let's just guess. I'm gonna guess we're gonna wanna send at about -25. Let's see what that feels like at verse 1.
Knock on the door, open the invitation, looking out for a lemonade situation. Hold out your hand, it's a lemonade stand. Just knock on the door, open the invitation, looking out for a lemonade.
Nice, love it, subtle. Great work. Great work, Theo, on singing that song. Okay, we got a little reverb there. Let's throw Theo in a little room also, because I know Theo loves when his vocal's in a little room. To do that, let's put him in let's use the Valhalla, because I know Theo loves a Valhalla room. So let's pull up Valhalla Room. And I've even got a little preset called LV Room that I like, really short, 0.13 seconds on decay there.
Knock on the door, open the invitation, looking out for.
I'm gonna send that at like -30, which is actually right about where the reverb ended up as well. It's just a tiny little halo of sound, not a big deal, but all these little halos are gonna add up hopefully by the end of the mix. Actually, let's dive right into the drums and the bass, which I think come in at V2. So to catch drum and bass level, I like to listen a little bit before they drop.
And it's a lemonade stand, you see. Thousands of years stuck to the ocean bottom out of the blue. Dayton, Ohio's.
Nice, they already sound really good. Let's take a quick tour of what's going on here as far as production goes. We got a direct bass sound. This is Joe Dart into a little Motown DI. And then we got parallel. I'm pulling him into a Fairfield Circuitry EQ pedal that I'm cranking really hot to get it to fuzz out a little bit. Nice. Together, do they work? Absolutely. So that bass sound is already pretty killing. It felt a little loud in the mix to me, so therefore I'm going to, I'm actually going to trim off the front of that, and I'm just going to kind of turn it down just about 3.5 dB, which I consider one volume unit. Okay, let's listen to these drums and bass enter now.
Thousands of years stuck to the ocean bottom out of the blue. Dayton, Ohio's calling, next thing we knew. Man on the moon, you see. Yeah. Thousands of years stuck to the ocean bottom out of the blue.
Nice, drums are already sounding good. I'm gonna really resist soloing the drums. This would be a place where I think we would normally be taught, oh yeah, solo the drums, get them to sound great, get the kick to sound great, get the snare to sound great, get the overheads to sound great, get them all sounding amazing, and then try to put them in the mix. But it's actually the opposite. We want them in the mix always, and we want them sounding great in the mix. I don't care what the kick drum sounds like soloed. In fact, even knowing what it sounds like soloed is going to make me a worse mixer, unless I'm having a problem with the kick. So far, I think the kick sounds cool. I just had to turn it down a little. What I am gonna do is throw a compressor though on that whole drums mix, because I love the Vulf compressor. It's made by Goodhertz, one of my other favorite plugin companies, and these guys made the Vulf compressor with the guys from Vulfpek. Theo and Joe are both in Vulfpek, so why not throw the Vulf compressor on the drums? This is my start, my Vulf compressor start file, which sounds like absolutely nothing.
Thousands of years stuck to the ocean bottom.
And I like it to sound like nothing so that I can slowly bring it in. And the way that I do that with Vulf compressor is with the external sidechain % slider. So my start preset for Vulf compressor has the external sidechain at 100% with nothing feeding the external sidechain, therefore no compression. So I'm just gonna start bringing that back. Let's see if it pulls up here, does it? Yeah, there it is. Great. One of the great things about the Avid S3 is that you can set it to kind of follow you around Pro Tools. It'll spread plugins parameter across all your faders. You can also customize how they show up on those faders. I find that super useful. So now instead of me like mousing this slider and trying to listen, I can close my eyes, I can put my finger on the fader, and I can just pull it back until I like it.
Thousands of years stuck to the ocean bottom out of the blue. Dayton, Ohio's calling, next thing we knew. Man on the moon, you see. Thousands of years stuck to the ocean bottom.
Right about there, I loved how it kind of pushed everything right up into my face a little. I felt that hi-hat come a little closer. I felt everything just kind of like glue in with itself. Very nice. I felt it also got a little bit loud, so I'm just going to go with this output gain and trim this down with my eyes closed. I try to do as much as I possibly can with my eyes closed. I don't want to mix with my eyes. Sometimes we have to look at the screen, but if I can help it, I'm going to close them. Here we go.
Thousands of years stuck to the ocean bottom out of the blue. Dayton, Ohio's calling, next thing we knew. Man on the moon, you see.
Okay, ended up 1 dB down. That was pretty subtle, but I thought effective. The next thing I'm noticing about the drums is I just want a little more front end from the kick. So for front end for the kick, let's see. I think there's a Soundtoys plugin we can use for that. Let's try their CQ. CQ is a wonderful emulator of the Siemens W295B hardware, which I have 2 of to my left, but let's use the plugin since it's so fast. For a little kick knock, actually 1.5 dB is pretty close to where I'm looking for. And I'm just gonna jack this up 6 dB and see what that sounds like. A lot of my moves that I'm gonna make when I'm mixing are gonna be what I would consider like in the blind, essentially. Like I'll try to set the level that I'm setting to a reverb or set the parameters of an EQ without listening. I wanna kinda see if I can, it's not about guessing, see if I can accurately take the sound from my imagination, put it into the tools and see what it gives me back. That's gonna allow me to work a little bit faster, and it's gonna allow me to not have to listen to me sweeping around everything, therefore making me make a lot more decisions, making me more tired more quickly. Here we go.
Thousands of years stuck to the ocean bottom out of the blue. Dayton, Ohio's calling.
Nice, I'm gonna try 8 dB. And actually, while we're at it, let's throw 3 dB on the top.
Thousands of years stuck to the ocean bottom out of the.
Love it, and now I'm gonna pull back on the drive just a touch.
Thousands of years stuck to the ocean bottom out of the.
Nice, that sounds great for now. I'm also noticing we got a little too much of that super plate going, so I'm just gonna grab that fader and I'm gonna work it down with my eyes closed. Here we go.
Thousands of years stuck to the ocean bottom out of the blue. Dayton, Ohio's calling, next thing we.
Yeah, knocked 10 dB off it, felt great. I also heard a little something, and I'll show you a little trick I like to do. When there's a lot of like shs and tus and sus and puz a little bit less, going into a reverb, they kind of create this extra kind of effect, right? So some of us like that sound, some of us don't. I'm on the side that generally doesn't most of the time. So I'm gonna put a de-esser in front of the reverb, and I'm just gonna.
Thousands of years stuck to the ocean bottom out of the.
Nice, already better. I was listening to that sh and hearing it kind of bloom out in the reverb, and now it's blooming out a little bit less. I'm happier. More intimate vocal. Great. That's some vocals, that's some drums. Let's look at that bass a little bit and see if there is anything we can do to touch it up.
Lemonade stand, you see. Thousands of years stuck to the ocean bottom out of the blue. Dayton, Ohio's calling, next thing we knew. Man on the moon, you see.
Nice. I could use a little bit more clarity from the bass, and I'm going to try to get that from this parallel EQ track. And the way I'm going to do that is with another Goodhertz plugin that I use all the time, and that's Toop. Toop is an amazing plugin. It's a two-band filter that can be quite resonant. It's got a tube saturator, a tape saturator, it's got an emphasis filter, it's got an opto compressor, an opto limiter, it's got so much, and it's MIDI controllable. It's a wonderful plugin. I use it for almost everything. The thing I'm going to use it for here is to crank up a little mid-range on the bass. So again, we're going to do this blind. We're just going to kind of jack up, I don't know, something around 900, 1K. See what that sounds like.
A lemonade stand, you see. Thousands of years stuck to the ocean by.
Okay, that was really clear and actually kind of cool. What it brought out from the fuzz was maybe a little too much. So let's just drag it right over to the DI signal, see what we can get out of this.
A lemonade stand, you see. Thousands of years stuck to the ocean bottom out of the blue.
Love it. A little more finger, a little more attack. Perfect. Goes nicely with the roundness of the fuzz. Should have put it on the dry DI first. Psh, what was I thinking? Okay, bass is touched. Drums are touched. Let's take a listen to some other elements of this mix before we zoom out to the whole thing. Let's dive in a little bit to the percussion. So I already listened to the congas. We heard that there was a mark tree. Let's hear that again, soloed. Mark tree with a dog bark at the end. Very cool. Okay, so let's listen to this part of the song.
Hey, the
Great. I want those congas to have a much larger role in this song. So what I'm going to do is use Echo Boy, one of my favorite plugins from Soundtoys, and I'm going to send the congas to Echo Boy. I'm going to create a send. I'm going to call it conga delay. We're actually going to make it a mono send because I'm going to put the dry congas on one side and the delay congas on the other, and I don't want to have to deal with the stereo panning nonsense. So here comes Echo Boy. Echo Boy mono. Echo Boy is so cool. It's got so many different styles. I am kind of addicted to the Memory Man style just because I love Memory Man plugins. And I'm gonna set it to eighth notes. And I don't know if you realize this, but when I was listening to the rough mix and marking the form of the song, I also, during one of the choruses, went up, or maybe it was a bridge, went up to the tempo area and I tapped the tempo in. This song was not recorded to a click. I was not provided a BPM because it's a free recording. But I tapped it in and I got about 88 BPM. That's going to be good enough for doing some time delays, especially in a song like this where everyone's playing so tight. We're going to be just fine, I'm sure. Let's just crank up the delay send here and see what happens. I'm going to try 16ths. Nice, that's going to be a lot nicer. I'm going to cut some highs so that our ears still go to the right. I don't want it to feel like there is two conga players. I just want to create some like rhythmic ambiance and texture around this part. So I'm going to cut some highs off of our delay. I'm also going to use the diffusion engine, which kind of makes the delay a little reverby. At least that's how I think of it. So let's check that out. Love it. We're gonna leave it like that. And I'm gonna do the send just a little bit less to, again, just keep our ears, our listeners' ears focused on the dry and let the delay kind of just add a sense of space. Fantastic. We have a winds mix, and the winds were delivered to me as a single stereo file. I'm gonna take a quick solo listen to that just so I know what I'm working with. But when I get a stereo file like this, that usually indicates, hey, we like how this sounds, we've committed everything, please just balance this. Nice, super psychedelic, delayed out, flutes. I think that was all flutes. Very beautiful. And we have some like some music here at the end. Just some tiny little stabs. Super cool. So I'm just gonna level that right now in the mix and just see where that should sit. There's a ton of keyboards happening in this section as well, so this is a good opportunity to balance some keys on this song. So let's dig into the keyboard section and see what we got. Okay, we got all these tracks called piano sparkles. So I'm gonna take all those, and what I like to do when I see a bunch of tracks that are kind of doing a similar thing, part of a similar part of the arrangement, I'm gonna send them to their own routing folder so I can just deal with them with a single fader or put plugins on them as a group. So I have a little script for that, selects them all, asks me what I wanna call it. We're gonna call it piano sparklers. And there we go. And I thought those sounded wonderful. I want to make sure they're loud enough in the mix. Nice, and I heard that organ stab come in right after that, and I feel like that could easily be panned, so let's check that out. Nice, got those leveled. I see a piano reverb hiding out here, probably as part of this piano sound. Yep. Nice, looks like an automated reverb that was being rode off just some of the notes. Sounds really cool. Now, I might not even listen to every single track and like EQ every track or put a plug on every track. In fact, I'm not really trying to like get in there and put my mark on the tracks. What I'm trying to do is just like have the music sound good coming out of my speakers. If that involves changing something, great. If that involves turning something up, great. Turning something down, great. But that's not my goal. My goal isn't to like do a thing. My goal is just to have it sound cool. And sometimes that might mean doing almost nothing. Sometimes that might mean changing the entire sonic identity of a song. So once I've done a few things like this, I'm going to kind of just listen from the beginning and see what's kind of up. Here we go.
Knock on the door, open the invitation, looking out for a lemonade situation. Hold out your hand, it's a lemonade stand, you see. Thousands of years stuck to the ocean bottom, out of the blue. Dayton, Ohio's calling, next thing we knew, man on the moon, you see. Yeah. Here comes the knock on the door. Thousands of years.
Cool, I'm seeing something in the whirlies that involve a little change. I'm seeing now that whirly 1 should be in the middle. And then we have actually 2 pedal prints. One is a ring modulator, which is a Fairfield Circuitry, Randy's Revenge, I think. And the other is a Fairfield Circuitry Shallow Water, which is gonna do a little wobble, a little pitch wobble. Let's check those out in solo so we can hear how they're interacting with each other. Nice, they're creating a super cool stereo effect, so I want that to be wide, and I want the dry whirly right in the middle, or maybe not at all. Let's see what it sounds like.
Thousands of years stuck to the ocean bottom, out of the blue. Dayton, Ohio's calling.
Yeah, why do we even need the dry whirly? Let's go with just that wide, cool, like kind of pedally whirly.
Thousands of years stuck to the ocean bottom, out of the blue.
And just to back up, what I'm doing here is I'm just kind of listening in a linear fashion through the song. When I hear something or see something that I think doesn't make sense, I'm going to stop, deal with it, and then go back to the top, keep going. So I'm going to keep going through that process, getting a little further each time, hopefully. One more thing. I'm purposefully staying in the mix window here because I don't want to visually be cued by the edit window, which will let me see exactly what's about to happen. And if I see it's about to happen, I'm going to expect it, I'm going to hear it differently. And I want to always be in the position of the listener. The listener never knows what's about to happen. So I want to be there as much as I can. So I'm going to hang out in the mix window for that very reason.
Looking out for a lemonade situation. Hold out your hand, it's a lemonade stand, you see. Thousands of years stuck to the ocean bottom, out of the blue. Dayton, Ohio's calling, next thing we knew, man on the moon, you see. Yeah. Here comes the hurricane, it's blowing, babe, and there goes the automobile. Be the wheel, baby.
Okay, what was that little melody after the chorus in the organ? We want to bring that up.
Don't be the horse and buggy. Be the wheel. Be
Cool. It's in the organ, so we're going to automate that.
Don't be the horse and buggy. Be the wheel. Be the wheel, baby. Watch the old ways fight for survival under solemnly sworn hands on the Bible while the continents dance over the sands of time. Over the sands of time. Back at the ranch.
Nice. The whirly's leaning a little right now because of how those effects are working, which I'm liking. And so I'm like, wait, maybe the piano should lean a little bit left since they're both doing a similar range and also a similar kind of comping situation. So for that, I like to use Pan Pot, which is another good Hertz plugin. And I like to use a spectral pan, which just kind of pans the high frequency information. So I'll just take this spectral pan and slide it over just a little, go back to the top. Nice. I went to the top to check that because I'm like, that's where it would probably sound the weirdest since it's by itself, but that sounded pretty cool coming out of my speakers. So I'm going to go right back to verse 3 where I had that thought.
Watch the old ways fight for survival under solemnly sworn hands on the Bible while the continents dance over the sands of time. Over the sands of time. Back at the ranch, look for the golden teacher lie in the grass next to.
Nice. Let's deal with those background vocals. Here we go. And for that, I'm probably going to use clip gain and panning only. So let's start with our panning. Just go for left, right to start, and let's see where we end up. Verse 4.
Back at the ranch, look for the golden teacher lie in the grass next to the water. The ranch, look for the gold. Back at the ranch.
I could just pull these faders down, right? Or I could put them in a group or something like that. But for something like this, I don't have any processing on it yet. Maybe I won't ever. It's best to just use clip gain so I can keep my faders at 0. I want to keep my faders at 0 because that's where all the resolution is for my fingers.
Ranch, look for the golden teacher. Back at the ranch, look for the golden teacher lie in the grass next to the water feature. Listen and close, baby, take notes. Just say yeah, yeah, yeah. Back at the ranch, look for the golden teacher lie in the grass next to the water feature. Listen and close, baby, take notes. Just say yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm just saying, here comes the hurricane. It's blowing, babe, and there goes.
Whirly seemed a little loud before the chorus. I'm just going to automate that down.
Take notes, just say yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm just saying, here comes the hurricane. It's blowing notes, just say yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm just saying, here comes the hurricane. It's blowing, babe, and there goes the automobile. Don't be the horse and buggy. Be the
Okay, let's deal with the background vocals and the chorus before we get to that bridge, which is going to be very exciting.
Comes the hurricane.
I'm going to take a quick listen to see what these background vocals are doing.
Comes the hurricane. It's blowing, babe. And there goes the automobile.
Nice, sounds pretty good. There's a little chamber I see down there. Maybe we'll turn that up a bit and add a solo.
Here comes the hurricane.
I'm also going to pull the lead vocal back a bit from the dry, and we're going to do that as the chorus comes up with automation. Here we go.
Baby, take notes, just say yeah, 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 yeah.
Actually, I'm going to pull back from the limiter bus. That way my reverb actually stays up and my dry reverb balance will like favor the reverb a little bit.
Baby, take notes, just say yeah, 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 yeah. I'm just saying, here comes the hurricane. It's blowing, babe, and there goes the automobile. Don't be the horse and buggy, be the wheel. Baby, take notes, just say yeah, 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 yeah. I'm just saying, here comes the hurricane. It's blowing, babe, and there goes the automobile. Don't be the horse and buggy, be the
Nice. I want to bring up this sound I know is hiding out in here, which is Wind Percussion Vocoder. Check it out. And that's all of the winds going to a vocoder as the synthesizer, and then the percussion going to the vocoder as a voice. And this is the result. Super fun little move we did when we were working on the production of this track. And so let's crank this guy up a little bit because I think it's a rad sound. Nice. All it needed was an additional 1.5 dB. Great. We don't need to do that much to that sound. Okay, the background vocals I jacked about 2.5 dB. Not that much, but I'm going to do the same thing for chorus 1. I'm going to also do the same thing for chorus 3 so that it's done. And now I'm going to go back to the beginning of the song, and I'm going to try to listen down to the whole thing now. If I was like, doing this mix actually for the record right now, I would probably keep on this process for another 30 minutes, hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours, just kind of zooming around, seeing what I hear, change it, change it, change it. But now what I want to do is check this mix across a bunch of different like monitoring situations. So I like to check a few different ways. One is I like to listen in mono on one speaker. Another way I like to listen is on my little Studer console speaker, but the really coolest way I listen is off of my phone speaker. So let me grab my phone. There's a wonderful app called Mix to Mobile. I'm going to cut my speakers with a little button. I'm going to go to my master bus on my monitor, which has my Mix to Mobile send. Click Start Listening. Nice. And now that I'm on my phone, I can really hear what this is going to sound like on a phone because I'm actually mixing from my phone. And what I'm going to be paying attention to when I'm on my phone is mid-range balance. How's the vocal sound? How's the snare sound? How's the kick sound? Because the kick has got to come through on the phone. When I'm doing this, I'm going to throw my whole mix into mono, which I have on this little MIDI button right here. That controls, I think it controls, yeah, can opener, another great Goodhertz plugin, and I just throw it in mono. Boom, boom, boom. So we're going to be in mono for this listen.
Knock on the door, open the invitation, looking out for a lemonade situation. Hold out your hand, it's a lemonade stand, you see. Thousands of years stuck to the ocean bottom out of the blue. Dayton, Ohio's calling, next thing we knew, man on the moon, you see. Yeah. Here comes the hurricane, it's blowing, babe, and there goes the automobile. Here comes the hurricane, it's blowing, babe, and there goes the automobile. Don't be the horse and buggy, be the wheel. Be the wheel, baby. Watch the old ways fight for survival under solemnly sworn hands on the Bible while the continents dance over the sands of time. Over the sands of time. Back at the ranch, look for the golden teacher lie in the grass next to the water feature. Listen and those, baby, take notes. Just say yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm just saying, here comes the hurricane. It's blowing, babe, and there goes the automobile. Don't be the horse and buggy, be the wheel.
Nice. So I made a bunch of adjustments while I was listening on the phone speaker. I realized the vocal actually felt a little too out front on the phone speaker, which was a good thing to hear. I was able to pull the lead vocal back. That's going to make the whole band feel bigger. And that was great listening like that, listening in mono. I'll show you the other way I listen is mono, one speaker muted. So I'll check that mix out.
Knock on the door. Thousands of years stuck to the ocean bottom out. Comes the hurricane, it's blowing, babe.
Nice. I don't need to listen to the whole mix there. I'm just kind of checking around each section to make sure like things still sound like music, which they do. Great. I have a couple other things I want to do before I do a full listen and note. The first thing is I really would like to hear some of these elements a little bit tapier, especially the keys and the drums. So what I'm going to do is set up 2 stereo channels on my 8-track tape machine, and I'm going to get those going live in the session. So check out how that works. So I'm just patching 4 channels of my converters in and out of 4 channels of my tape machine. I've got a reel of tape loaded up there for this purpose. And I'm going to run this live. Now, you might be thinking to yourself, Phil, isn't this going to sound crazy? Because the tape machine repro head is going to be somewhere around 100 milliseconds later than the session. So then our drums and our keys are going to be 100 milliseconds behind everything else. That's going to sound insane. And it would. However, we have compensated for that. So if I go to my I/O settings and I go to hardware insert delay, I can go to my inputs I'm going to use for these. It's going to be, what are we going to use for this? We're going to use 3/4 and 5/6, and I'm going to type in the amount of delay that this tape machine has, which I know is 93 milliseconds. So if I type in 93 milliseconds, then I can insert this tape machine and it will be compensated for in my hardware inserts. This is a really cool reason to use hardware inserts versus sending out, recording back in an audio track and then scooching it over. You can't do that live. And I want to always be working live. I don't want to hear things that aren't going to be the mix. So now I'm going to instantiate these. They happen to be at my W295 is what I patched over, and I patched over my spec. So let's see if that works. Let's just go right to V2 and see if it hits.
Thousands of years stuck to the ocean bottom out of the blue. Dayton, Ohio's
First thing I notice is that my tape machine's coming back a little bit quieter than my signal, so I'm just gonna boost up into the tape machine. I'm also going to look at the meters.
Thousands of years stuck to the ocean bottom out of the blue. Dayton, Ohio's calling, next thing we knew.
Nice. So I brought 12 dB into the tape machine to get it to kind of go into the red. And so now I'm just going to reduce it on the other side with a Good Hertz loudness plugin, which is kind of a replacement for a fader. Here we go. We're just going to pull this down now until it feels right. So we're going to essentially be rebalancing the drums. So let's actually go just a little bit before this section hits. We'll bring the drums down by, I'm going to guess it's about 9 dB.
Thousands of years stuck to the ocean bottom out of the blue. Dayton, Ohio's calling, next thing we knew. Man on the moon. Yeah.
Nice. And the other nice thing about tape is that it sounds really good when you boost high end into it. So I love doing pre-emphasis high-end EQ boost. So I'm just gonna pull up another instance of our friend Toop, and I'm just gonna crank some high-end into this tape machine.
Thousands of years stuck to the ocean bottom out of the blue. Dayton, Ohio's calling, next thing we knew. On the moon, you see.
Nice. Now I'm going to take that whole chain with all of that gain, that high frequency boost, all that stuff. I'm just going to copy it right over to that keys mix because that was sounding good on the drums. I bet it's going to sound good on the keys. So let's bring that 2 plugin down there. We already have it, the tracks 5 and 6. Loudness compensate at the other end. Looks like we had a 12 dB boost, so I'll just grab that 12 dB from Toop And let's see what this sounds like from the top, which is where we have the keys by itself. Be easy to tell. Easy to tell.
Knock on the door, open the invitation, look.
Nice, I love it. I actually love the extra hiss we're getting. And there's something that I want to talk about. This record was recorded to tape. So we recorded this on another Otari machine, an MTR-90 2-inch 24 track. Now you might be saying, Phil, it's already been recorded tape. Why would you record it to more tape? And the reason is because all the recordings we love from the 60s, 70s, 80s, even 90s, those tracks didn't just hit tape once to be recorded and then hit tape one more time for the mix down. They were hitting tons of channels of tape. Think about a Beatles recording. They would record onto 3 tracks, dump it down to 1 track, open up another 3 tracks, record on 2, mix those down to 1, mix those 2 tracks to stereo, bounce, 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 bounce. So you're getting all these layers of tape, all these layers of high frequency limiting, all these layers of saturation, of nonlinear harmonic, whatever, tape compression. So actually hitting tape multiple times is a good thing, and it's not about just using a tape plugin a bunch of times. If we can actually hit the real thing, we're gonna get all that nonlinear goodness, all of that kind of gooey, fun stuff we like to get from the tape machine. So, got a couple more tape machine tracks going now on this. I'm very much digging that sound. I think it's time to do my listen and note. So my listen and note, I got my pencil, I got a blank piece of paper, and I'm gonna listen down to the whole song, and I'm gonna write down everything I hear that I wanna change. I'm not gonna stop, I'm gonna let it go all the way to the end. Here we go.
Knock on the door, open the invitation, looking out for a lemonade situation. Hold out your hand, it's a lemonade stand, you see. Thousands of years stuck to the ocean bottom, out of the blue. Dayton, Ohio's calling, next thing we knew, man on the moon, you see. Here comes the hurricane, it's blowing, babe, and there goes the automobile. Don't be the horse and buggy, be the wheel. Be the wheel, baby. Watch the old ways fight for survival under solemnly sworn hands on the Bible while the continents dance over the sands of time. Over the sands of time. Back at the ranch, look for the golden teacher, lie in the grass next to the water feature. Listen and close, baby, take notes, just say yes.
Nice. Now I have some marching orders. Here's what I got. Deplosive, the lead vocal. Turn the kick down overall just a little bit. Lead vocal, verb up in the chorus. In verse 4, let's make those background vocals start left, right, and then go center, those little response lines. Let's take the ride down the bridge. Felt like it was sticking out a little on the left, which also felt like it was the wrong position. So I might flip my overheads. Let's actually write that, flip overheads. I'd like to have a flanger on the lead vocal on the bridge. I think that would be cool. I have a cool MXR flanger doubler here I'm going to go out to. Then I have, before chorus 3, I felt that there were stabs that were a little bit too loud. Let's bring those down. End of chorus 3, I want that bigger lead vocal verb again that we're going to be putting into the other choruses. So maybe that's going to take care of that. And then let's draw a little fade on the tail. So let's do this real quick. These aren't going to take us very long. So let's go to the lead vocal. We're going to deplosive this. I'm just going to select the whole thing. I'm going to do Pro Tools new global search, which is amazing. I'm going to write deplosive, of which there's an RX10 tool for this now. And I'm literally going to just deplosive the whole thing. Before I do that, I'm going to duplicate the playlist, call that playlist pre-process, and then run this audio sweep process. So I have a little script that does that for me. Thank you very much. Beep, boop, boop, beep, boop, 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 boom. Great. Render. Done. All right, kick down. Let's get a little bit before the kick and put our fingers on a fader and find the right position. The nice thing about the S3, if we double click on a routing folder, it'll just spill that folder out for us. So here's my kick.
Without your hand, it's a lemonade stand, you see. Thousands of years stuck to the ocean bottom out of the blue. Dayton, Ohio's calling, next thing we knew, man on the moon, you see.
Nice, took about 2 dB off the kick. I'm gonna flip those overheads while we're there. And for that, I'm gonna just use pan pot again, just because I am a little bit neurotic and I don't want to see a stereo track with a flipped pan in my Pro Tools session. I'll go crazy. Lead vocal verb in the chorus. Let's send the unlimited vocal, so no compression, no limiting, to another reverb. And let's do a hardware reverb for this so we can get the Studer involved. We're going to go out to my Mic Mix Master Room MR3, which is a super tall spring reverb with 2 springs in it at different sizes. So let's bring up the MR3 that's on these channels on the fader, and let's instantiate it, MR3, and here we go.
Without your hand, here comes a hurricane. It's blowing, babe, and there goes the autumn.
Sounded a little bit odd. Let's figure out why. Oh, okay. Cool thing about my board is that I've modded this board, and I've modded it to be the inserts to be able to be taken on and off, which is super useful. When I'm tracking here at the studio, I keep the inserts off, and that way these channels are just available for a front end. But when I'm mixing, I just flip these inserts to on. That basically inserts whatever I have at the patch bay normal to these channels inserts. Send me a DM, I'll send you my patch bay spreadsheet. But now that I've flipped it over, we'll have the reverb. So here's without the reverb. And here's the reverb. So now I'll keep the reverb. Actually, I'm going to turn the channel up and pull the reverb back so I can just have a better signal to noise ratio. And we'll listen obviously outside of solo.
Here comes a hurricane. It's blowing, babe, and there goes the automobile. Don't be the horse and buggy, be the wheel.
Nice. And I'm going to automate the mute on the send. So I'm going to go up to my MR3 send. I'm going to mute it, and I'm just going to unmute it at the choruses. I'm going to unmute it at chorus 2. I'm going to unmute it at chorus 3. And then I'm going to just check my heads and my tails of that mute. Here we go.
Here
Actually, let's see what it sounds like if he's on reverb there.
Be the wheel, baby.
Yeah, it's subtle and I like it. Let's keep it on.
I'm just saying, here comes the hurricane. It's blowing, babe, and there goes the wind. Just be that be the wheel.
Nice, I left it on for the bridge as well. That's done. And I'm just gonna cross these off the list. V4, BV pan. Oh yeah, I really want to do that. I want to make those response BVs kind of be like, over here, over there, dead center. See how that sounds.
Back at the ranch, look for
Yeah, that'll be cool. So let's see if we can group all these guys, make them a little bigger, easier to work with. Let's check our group settings. Are we, oh my goodness, are we set for pan? Let's set it for pan. Let's make that group active. Okay, and now we're gonna bring up the pan automation. I'm just gonna make them all hard right. They didn't quite make it. There we go. Hey, come on now. Oh yeah, there we go, hard left. Okay, that's fine.
look for
And now, like that.
grass next to the water feature. Listen and close, baby, take notes.
Nice, that's what I was hearing. Let me check it with a little context.
Back at the ranch, look for the golden teacher. Lie in the grass next to the water feature. Listen and close, baby, take notes. Just
Sweet. Ride down in the bridge. Let's go to the bridge and see what we can do about that ride. Okay, turn the ride down. There's not a ride mic, you know, it's just in the whole everything. This stuff was all recorded live, so there's ride in the vocal, there's ride everywhere. One thing that we can do to kind of help us out here is use some kind of high frequency limiting and EQ, and I've been kind of addicted to the Fatso for this. That's by UAD. They make a sweet little Fatso plugin. I like the Fatso Junior, and what I'm just going to do is use the Warmth, which to me seems to be like a high frequency limiter and EQ. So let's just crank it up to 7 and see what that sounds like. I'm actually shocked at how that worked. Let's bypass it and make sure we're not just crazy. Fantastic. Now we don't want it on the whole song, we just want it for the bridge. So I'm just gonna bypass the plugin entirely and then automate it coming on this drum mix just for the bridge. Let's get our heads and tails on that. Oh, UAD, bad boys, not automatable on the bypass. Let's try their power button. Sometimes they do a better job automating that. So we'll start with that guy off. We'll keep the plugin open the whole time and we'll turn the power on. Now we're going to solo it because we're scared about the plugin making a noise. That's fine. I think if we do it right on a transient, we'll be okay. And that was the first time we've heard the drums in solo on this whole mix. It was well worth the wait.
don't be the horse and buggy, be the wheel.
Great, ride down, flip overhead, done. LV, flanger, this is gonna be fun. So let's take the limited vocal now, so not the dry, unlimited vocal, the limited vocal, and let's send that out to a flanger. So I've got an MXR flanger doubler over here, so I'm gonna send to a mono track, and I'm gonna call it MXR FD, flanger doubler. There's a plugin for the flanger doubler made by Universal Audio. It sounds exactly okay. My MXR sounds a lot better. Looks like I don't have one pre-built here, so I'm going to use my space echo channel and patch over it. So I'm going to go to the patch bay, do a cross patch. Okay, let's check out this MXR flanger doubler situation.
Automobile, automobile. Heal the way, heal the way, heal the way, yeah. Heal the way, heal the way.
Nice, sounds great. I want to ride that the whole time, so I'm going to just commit that right away since it's just a little section of the song. So I'm just going to select that little bit, which is the bridge, and I'm going to run a commit on it right now. Here we go.
Be the
Great, now it's committed. I'm going to color it so it doesn't look like it's muted. I'm going to zoom into that and the lead vocal, and I'm going to just edit it to happen right where I want.
Be the
Great, done. Pre-chorus 3, the stabs are too loud. Pre the chorus 3, so before the chorus, there was still something too loud. What was it, the Wurlitzer? The Wurlitzer was too loud. It's these guys. Whoops. Let's bring that gain back, make a clip out of them, and see what that does. Nice. End of C3, bigger lead vocal verb. I already put it on everything, so I'm going to just guess that's fine. Tail fade. So let's draw a fade on the tail. For that, I like to do it right on the 2 mix, which we haven't even talked about yet, but we're going to get there just a second. So let's get out of this spill. We're going to get the 2 mix fader. Let's bring that 2 mix fader right here so I don't have to reach over. So nice. Going to go into touch mode. And I'm not trying to do like a fade, like pretend the band played on. I'm just trying to like fade out the hiss and the noise on the end of the track. So here we go.
Be the will, be the will, baby.
Fade, new end marker, and I place the end marker where I think the next track should start. That way when someone throws this into a playlist, it's like kind of flowing nice. go back into read mode on all my tracks. Fantastic. Okay, we've now hit everything. It's time to commit our outboard. We have a bunch of outboard going. We have a tape machine. We have an LA2A. We have the DBC diode bridge compressor. We have an MR3 spring. We already committed our flanger doubler. That's about all we got right now on this track. So let's commit it all. To do that, I have a little script that just finds every single channel that has a hardware insert on it. You could obviously just do this by hand, but now I've got it: drums mix, keys mix, piano, lead vocal limiter, and the MR3. Selects from the start to the end of my session. And now I'm just gonna commit that audio, and when it's done being committed, I'm gonna hide the source tracks and make them inactive. Here we go. Oh, before I do this, when I do a full commit like this at the end of a mix, and if you're using hardware, this is how I recommend doing it, this is a great opportunity to do another listen and note. So I'm just gonna make a little box at the bottom of my page here, and I'm gonna listen one more time and see if there's any changes I wanna make before I prepare to put some stuff on my 2-mix and bounce this out for Theo. Here we go. Nice. Let the render finish. Okay, the render's done. We got our committed tracks. Tape machine is done. Stop it, take the capstan out of power. There's a thing we have to do here. If you're a Pro Tools user and you use heat, like I do, by the way, my heat setting, drive 1 to the left, tone 1 to the right. Go for it. If you use heat and you commit an aux track, that aux track is now audio. Now it has heat applied to that new track. The problem is if you do that like at this stage in a mix where you like your balance is going to change because that drive to the left and that tone to the right has like, I think it's about 1.7 dB of perceived gain. So what I have to do is go find anything that was an aux that was committed and bypass heat. So that's going to include my limiter. That's going to include my reverb. Great. Now I'm back to where I was. This will sound exactly like the mix I just had going, except now all my hardware is committed, freed up to be used for something else, or I'm basically just now 100% in the box. I made 4 little notes while that was going. Bass down. The organ note I actually don't believe in anymore. I'm going to take the MR3 down 2 dB, so I'm going to do that right now. That's the additional chorus reverb. I also want to pre-delay that, so I'm just going to use our good friend Echo Boy. I love Echo Boy for a pre-delay, and I'm going to time that out at about 80 milliseconds. That's because in the manual for the MR3 it says it already has a 40 millisecond delay based on the circuit. Not really exactly sure why that is, but I believe them. I want 120 total, so I'm adding 80 of delay, clean studio tape delay to the MR3. Wins need to come down 3 dB. I'm just going to do that in the blind. So I'm going to take a loudness plugin, throw it right on the wins track, -3, and I'm going to guess that the bass is minus 1.5. Great. And I'm not going to really listen to that right now and try to like assess it analytically because I feel like I felt it. That's good enough. Now it's time to touch the master bus. We're going to hear it a bunch. So I use the master bus in all sorts of different ways. Sometimes I set it up kind of in the like pre-master way that maybe some of you have learned about, where you like build out a really intense master bus to start the track. I do that a lot. I love doing that. Sometimes I put the master bus in the middle. But honestly, I just do it whenever I think about it, whenever I need it. I wasn't really feeling at any point in this mix like, oh man, I need something on that master bus. Probably because this stuff was recorded pretty well. It already was pretty vibey. We had some good compression going at tracking. We had a little compression here. It just felt like it was already in a good place. That being said, I still want to play around with the master bus before I print this off. So my master bus, I use Bloom sometimes. I use a Shadow Hills mastering compressor. I use Tone Control, which is a Baxen EQ from Goodhertz. I use a Studer 800 plugin from UAD, and I use Gold Clip from Schwab Digital. For something like this, I'm just gonna kind of try it all out real fast and see what happens. So I'm gonna start with Bloom. I'm just gonna turn it on, keep it at 3, and I'm just gonna hear what verse 2 sounds like when the drums drop.
Thousands of years stuck to the ocean bottom out of the blue.
Bypass it.
Thousands of years stuck to the ocean bottom out of the blue. Dayton.
Nah, don't need it. Great. Shadow Hills mastering compressor. This one I usually like to use. What I'm going to do is in bypass, I'm going to adjust all the thresholds. And all I want is for in verse 2 to see a half dB on the optical side and a half dB on the discrete side. I already have a preset here. That's exactly how I want it with my high pass filter, my mono maker. I'm adding 3% of stereo width to the whole mix with this. This is a nice Plugin Alliance plugin. So here we go. In bypass, I'm going to set this.
Thousands of years stuck to the ocean bottom out of the blue. Dayton, Ohio's calling. Next thing we knew, man on the moon, you see.
Great. Now I'm going to take a listen.
Thousands of years stuck to the ocean bottom out of the blue.
Nice, just a subtle little tightening up of those edgier dynamics, those transients right on the edge of things, just kind of go like that. I'm gonna just go ahead and not even try this Studer 800. I already know I'm not gonna like it on this mix. Goodbye, goodbye Bloom. Gold Clip, okay. Gold Clip is a great clipping plugin from Ryan Schwab at Schwab Digital. It's really found a home on my mix bus. These are the settings I tend to use. I use the classic box tone. I use a modern clipper, which is essentially a soft clipper. And I use this thing he calls Gold, which is essentially a like preset compressor. The effect it has for me is extra body and density without adding actual gain to the top. So like my peaks are still the same, but I can add body. So it's essentially like kind of like free loudness. That's what it seems like to me. Ryan, correct us if I'm wrong. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna play it from chorus 1. Maybe I'll actually do the bridge because I think that's the loudest part of the song. And I'm just gonna set the clipping to like somewhere around 0. Because this song doesn't need to have like a clipping effect. One dB of clipping, like what did I end up at? 0.12 of gold, just a little bit of extra body. Didn't want too much. I was liking that the song felt a little bit, light on its feet. And then lastly, let's set a limiter because when we send it off to the client, we're gonna want it to be plenty loud. I don't want it to be crazy loud, but I want something. I have a little MIDI map here, so I can just do it here. I'll take my one hand on my master volume so I don't blow my ears out as I start cranking this guy up. Here we go.
Knock on the door. Thousands of years stuck to. Here comes the hurricane. It's blowing rain.
nice. 1 to 2, maybe 3 dB of limiting. I'm not trying to master this track. I just want it to be loud enough. At the bridge, we're gonna end up at -10 LUFS. Feels great. That's gonna be plenty loud for someone to listen on their phone, have a good experience, be able to like know what's going on. So we've set a master bus. We've listened in a bunch of different ways. We've done a bunch of hardware recording. We've committed it. I think we're good to go on this mix for V1. So I'm just gonna bounce this off and send it to the client. To do that, I'm gonna use SoundFlow again to run some bounce processes. So when I pull up my bounce process, it asks me, what do I wanna bounce? The full mix, the instrumental, the acapella, the stems, the TV mix, which is the mix without the background vocals. And for this, I know we're gonna do more versions. He's not gonna approve mix 1. I mean, that'd be crazy. So we're just gonna bounce the full mix. That's gonna bounce offline, and the way it's gonna work is it's gonna go get that prod track I talked about in the beginning. It's gonna make that active. It's gonna track bounce my limiter track and my prod track from start to end. It's gonna bring those into the session. It's gonna name them properly, and it's gonna put them in my mixes folder so it's ready to send. Here we go.
Your bounce is finished, sir.
I've programmed the computer to tell me that the bounce is finished so that if I'm not looking, I know it's done. Okay, save, close it down, and then in my Finder, I have my MixCon folder, which is where this happened. I have my Be the Wheel MixCon, and now I have an underscore mixes folder, and in there is Be the Wheel, oh, it didn't know what version it was, Be the Wheel Mix Lim, Be the Wheel Mix Prod, and I will send the client the mix lim. If for some reason they approve it, I take that prod mix, send it off to mastering. That's my whole mix flow. That's what I do basically every day when I'm mixing. Huge shout out to Soundtoys for sponsoring this video. They make some of the most amazing plugins. If you don't already have them all, buy them all. Thank you to Sonic Scoop for putting together MixCon and bringing all these amazing mixers together. See you next time.
All right, I hope you enjoyed that mixing masterclass as much as I did. I think there were some great insights in there, and it's wonderful to see this whole process laid out in front of us in real time, going through a mix from start to finish really quickly and with really great results. Big thanks to Philip for doing this, and big thanks to the artist Theo Katzman for letting us dive under the hood of his track. And also thanks to the sponsors that made this whole thing free to the public. That is Soundtoys. You'll notice that Philip used a whole bunch of Soundtoys plugins in his mix. You've seen the CQ in there, you've seen the Little Plate, you've seen the Echo Boy, and there's a whole bunch of plugins he loves. And we can ask him more about his favorite Soundtoys plugins and anything else that comes to mind for you in the live Q&A that's coming up right as soon as this masterclass concludes. One quick note before we get there, we're also giving away a whole bunch of free gear. We are giving away more than $5,000 worth of free gear, and you have 3 chances to win. So sign up for that in the MixCon Mega Giveaway. Look for the link to that in the comments and in the description down below. All right, I hope you've enjoyed Philip's insights this far, and now we're going to go even farther with him and even deeper in the live Q&A that's going to start right about now. Hope to see you there.